Good afternoon, Martin.
Is the Speaker making this rare promise of new legislation because you've wrapped up work on the payroll tax cut extension, you've wrapped up the issue of unemployment insurance and Medicare doc fix, and we can now move on to other business?
Well, let me say the Republicans and the Tea Party, of course, have a way of trying to shift the debate again away from what is really important, and that's creating jobs and turning the economy around. I just have to say, as it relates to this latest rule and what they're doing in terms of politicizing women's contraceptive, access to contraception and health care. You know, Martin, I was raised a Catholic. I was a practicing devout Catholic, and I understand very clearly the tenets of the Catholic Church. And of course, I respectfully disagree, but I respect religious beliefs. I respect religious freedoms. I also respect the separation of the church and state. And this latest ruling really is very important for women's access to contraceptions. And I just want to lay out the facts for just a minute. What it does is it provides access for women. For example, a woman who is working in the cafeteria of a Catholic hospital, she may or may not want access to contraception. This allows her that access. What it does not do is tamper with the 335,000 religious organizations that have already been exempt. And in fact, Martin, in 28 states now, we have these exemptions which provide for coverage if women decide to choose this type of contraceptive coverage for half of the women in the United States. And so the facts have been distorted, and I think the president made the correct decision. We have to keep this separation of church and state as central, and we have to acknowledge the religious beliefs of all. But this in no way requires a Catholic doctor, for example, to write a prescription. It does not require any healthcare worker to go against their religious beliefs.
We know that Mitt Romney is struggling to win over the conservative faithful. But is there not something shameless about a man who, as governor, accepted a very similar law on contraception, and in 2005 he even asked the Massachusetts Department of Health to issue regulations requiring all hospitals, including Catholic hospitals, to issue emergency contraception to rape victims? But now he says he's distressed to see the president attacking religious freedom. The only question I have for you is, really?
The president is not attacking religious freedoms, and I think that the longer the Republican primaries continue, the more people will begin to understand the backgrounds of some of these candidates and what they say and what they do, and they really will begin to see that we have to re-elect President Obama if, in fact, we're going to move forward and make sure that women and everyone has access to affordable and accessible health care. I think that.
But there also seems to be a very real conflict here between principle and practice, because according to one measure, 52% of Catholics actually agree with the healthcare law, and in practice 68% of Catholics are using birth control. So if the principle is so utterly important, why is there such a divergence in terms of practice? I mean, we fight the law even though we live according to it.
Well, as I said, many, and again, I am a former Catholic, so I understand those dilemmas. However, the Catholic bishops have really made a strong push to try to make sure that this became a political issue. Yes, you're right. The statistics show that the majority of Catholic women do use contraception. The point is, women should have a right to decide whether or not they want to use contraception or not, and that's the issue. And I think by coming forth with this rule now, all women, regardless of their income, regardless of where they work, will have access to contraceptive services if they want it.
Even though Speaker Boehner, and I'm thinking him, says this attack by the federal government on religious freedom in our country cannot stand, and it will not stand.
The Speaker is just wrong, and I hope the public really looks at the facts. But also in a larger context, Martin, there is a war against women. When you look at the fact that they're trying to, at least last year, take away funding for Planned Parenthood, when you look at what is taking place in terms of women's health care, systematically, over and over and over again, we see this assault and this attack on women. So I believe that women in this country, and most people, really understand the political nature of what the Speaker speaker is saying, and we're going to make sure that women do continue to have access to reproductive health care and to health care and to basic kind of affordable, accessible health care that everyone in our country deserves, the type of health care that they choose. They have the freedom of choice. All women should be able to decide whether or not they want to access contraceptive care or not.
Representative Barbara Lee, born into a Catholic family. Thank you, ma'am.